Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Business Xpose TV. My name is Aldwyn Altuney, and it is with great pleasure that I interview someone who has actually business coached me and is an awesome coach. He is from Sydney and he's the Director of Business Performance Tuning, as well as an author, speaker, marketing strategist, business growth expert. And he's also the founder of the Australian Business Owners Breakthrough Mastermind, which is growing a following on LinkedIn, so make sure you join that. Hello and welcome, Azim Sahu-Khan.
Hey Aldwyn, how are you today?
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I can't wait to hear your strategies on how to find $10,000 in your business in 45 minutes or less. But before we get to that, how did you actually start business yourself, and what have you found some of the biggest issues facing business owners today?
Look, I've been doing things since I was young, like in terms of even making candles at school when I was in primary school. We used to sell those because I was right into it. So I've always had that inclination to be in business. And then having worked with a number of businesses over the years and in a number of businesses as an employee as well, you sort of realize that I should be doing some of these things myself. So I've had a number of different businesses over the years, everything from catering to cafes to hair and beauty and all that, as a manufacturer, and been involved in running and consulting to a number of businesses where I've actually run the businesses for them. And you actually find that in a lot of the cases, the problem, I guess the key problem with most businesses is the fact that the business owner, and even at the high levels, like high level of business, but in general, the business owner is so busy working in the business and doing everything themselves that they really don't ever get a chance to take a step back and look at it. And when they do take a step back, it's usually so they can get some sleep, right? Because they're busy working 60, 70 hours a week, and it just doesn't allow them to move ahead. So, you know, we always say, look, effectively they've got a job, and that is true, but perhaps that's a little bit harsh in some respects. It's something that they love, it's grown out of a passion. Sometimes the answer for them is to actually leave that business because they're not growing what we call an asset. So basically something, I always say, look, if you can't pass the hit by the bus test, you've got a problem. Meaning that if something were to happen to you today and you were incapacitated for a period of time, would the business stop? And unfortunately, in a lot of cases, the answer is yes. The business would be severely affected or stop. So the majority of my work has been helping people build systems in their businesses and around their businesses so that they can step away from them and have it still run, but still make a profit, you know. And that becomes the difference between having a business and having a job, you know.
And what is the biggest challenges actually for people to actually step out of doing everything in the business and being so far in the business? What are the challenges they face when they actually need to learn to let go? It's something I can relate to, by the way.
I think you probably just said it yourself, the need to let go. Because it's, you know, I've built this business. This is my baby, you know. I couldn't possibly let somebody else do it. No one can do it as well. I hear that all the time, you know. No one can do it like we do it, and that sort of thing. But the reality is, if you do, and look, to be honest, for some people, particularly in the service industry, that's okay. That's what they want to do. But it'll never be a saleable asset, okay? So the biggest challenge is teaching, making, and we used to do the same thing, and I used to say this to my staff when I had staff in the various companies that I worked, is my goal is to make me redundant so that you can take my job and do it. And the only way you can do that is to have everything systemized to the point of needs to be done is almost done, as we say, automagically. Okay, so we don't need to know that a certain, like, basically what I apply to people is, if you on a regular basis, then you really shouldn't be doing that anymore as a business owner. You should be getting somebody else to do that, or outsourcing it or whatever it happens to be. I did have a client not so long ago, sat them down, they were doing all sorts of stuff that they really shouldn't have been doing, but through their eyes, they were supporting the business. She was going to Officeworks and buying the stationery, right? This is the business owner, you know, and they've got like 40 or 50 people working for them and interior designers and all that sort of thing. I won't embarrass them by saying the name, okay? But she was doing things like that. He was doing all sorts of running around and putting out the fires. So I sat them down, and this is a great strategy for anybody watching, right? To free up more of your time to work on the business. Is I sat them down and we picked the 10 least value things that they did, both of them. And when we put all those things together, we actually were able to create a job for a $35,000 a year junior, okay? And all of a sudden, they had masses of time available to them because they weren't, it's not wasting time, but they weren't utilizing their time in the low value stuff. Is figure out what makes you the most revenue in your business, and you should be spending 70 to 80% of your time doing that, okay? And the majority of the problems that I see, or challenges that I see, is that the people are spending their time doing the thing and not selling the thing, okay? So even an artist, and I gave this example just recently, even an artist, they actually make their money not from doing the painting or the sculpture. They make their money from networking with the gallery owner, the restaurateur who's going to hang their work. And so they kind of think, I've got to spend all my time doing the thing, right? And that's the biggest challenge, is not working to grow the business, but having to put all the fires out.
Yes. Yes, very interesting indeed. And so your system for how to find $10,000 in your business,
yep,
45 minutes or less. What is the trick to that? That sounds amazing.
Okay.
How do you?
Well, there's no trick. Okay. It's not a do this and it will generate, you know, all this money overnight. The 45 minutes or less is I sit down, and it's actually the title of a new book that I'm doing, and I'm doing research on that book. Okay, we sit down and we look at a business, and we can actually find that $45,000 in the business in that $10,000 in that 45 minutes or less. I did one in a couple of weeks ago. We actually found $120,000 in half an hour, and the guy went, "Oh my God, I didn't see it." And it's just fine-tuning a lot of things. Now, we find that money in that time, and then it's a question of implementing the strategies that we've discussed to make that happen, okay? But $10,000 is usually just the start, because once we do those things, then we can sort of see, okay, well, the heavens open, which they are right here in Sydney at the moment. It's pouring rain. You can probably hear it in the background. The heavens open and to a whole lot of different things. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's not about having to, oh yeah, I've got to go spend all this money on advertising, or I've got to buy this system. The money that we generally find, and we found in 95% of the businesses that I've looked at, the money that we generally find is actually sitting in there in what I call plain sight. There are little things that we look at what someone is doing, and when you add up a whole of those little things, before you know it, there's $10,000 right there. But to give you an example, I've got a butcher, and I'll just round the figures up here. You know, they're turning over generally over $1 million a year. Okay, and the average transaction when somebody buys something is about $30. Okay, if you take those transactions and you add 1% to that, so 30 cents, and it's not hard to spend 30 cents in a butcher, right? That particular client, there was $11,500 right there. Okay, so that was a pricing tweak. But most of it is in areas that people don't really think about. So we go through a system, which I call the turbo system. And the first part of it is we look at what I call tuning your lead funnel. In fact, where are all the leads coming? We start by looking at your website. I mean, one of the interesting statistics that people get really astounded by is that only 10% of salespeople ever make more, and when I say salespeople, that's a business owner as well, ever make more than 3 contacts with their lead. It's surprising, right? Because what you find out is 48% of salespeople and I test it all the time when I ring for quotes for things at home and all that sort of thing. 48% of salespeople, and these are real stats, never follow up. They'll give you the quote, but they're so busy, they never follow up on the quote. And because they didn't follow up on the quote, they think you didn't want it. But the reality is, the majority of us don't buy on that first thing. But here's the scary thing, is that 80% of sales are made between the 5th and the 12th contact with the client. So if only 10% of salespeople are actually doing more than 3 calls, and 80% of sales are made 5 to 12, you can see obviously where the problem is, right? And you just need to sit in a business, and we've all done it. Somebody's rung and said, oh, you know, can you give me a quote on this? And we've done that. And you know, without putting you on the spot, you've probably done it, okay? And you've given them a quote, and they say, oh yeah, I wonder what happened with that guy. Well, that guy was waiting for you to call, okay, right? And so that's one of the things that we do. We look at the process of what happens when you do a quote, and we say, okay, well, how do you touch them? Because here's the thing, the majority of, and I'm just focusing on this one area, and there's, as I said, there's a whole lot of other different areas, but just on this call here, when we're talking about it, this is one area which you can find an enormous amount of money in nearly any business, is people generally won't buy on that first call, or whatever it is. Only 1% of your marketplace at any time is ready to buy right now, okay? Usually they're looking for information, they're finding out more about it. And these days we're doing that on the internet. You know, we're looking at Google, we're doing a bit of research. So, and then they start to look at, okay, well, it's what we call the buyer's journey. They're finding out information to solve their problem, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then they want information. So realistically, the things you want to do is you need to interrupt the person, right? In terms of, we're getting so many messages every day. So we have to find a way of getting their attention, okay? So we get their attention, and then we engage them. So that means, is there something that we can now do that they're interested in hearing more from us, okay? And then we educate them as to, okay, well, here are the dangers of, you know, if you're not doing X, or here's where you can, you know, do Y. And then once you've done that, once you've educated them, that's when you can move through to a purchasing thing, and then they're looking at working with you. The analogy that a lot of people use is going on a date, right? When you first walk up to a person, and you don't walk up to a person generally and say, would you like to get married? Okay, it doesn't happen. Okay, well, it might, but generally it's not going to work. Because your success rate is going to be very small with that, okay? Right, that's the direct approach, okay? Right, so your success rate is going to be very small when you do that. But the thing is, you usually say, hey, you know, you engage them, you interrupt them, you get their intention, and then you might go and have a cup of coffee with them, and you get to know them, they get to know you a little bit more, you know a little bit about what they want, and then you move along that process. So why is it that when I go to so many clients' websites, it just, all their brochures or whatever it is, it all screams, buy my stuff. That's what it says. You know, it's buy my stuff. And therein lies the problem, because, you know, you see it on Facebook as well. People say, oh, we've got this sale going, you know, you've got to do this. So they're not really starting to engage the people to start with. Now, just looking at that area in your business and how you can keep that conversation going to educate these people, interrupt them, engage them, and then educate them, then that in itself can generate an enormous amount of dollars in your business. Now, the other thing that I find with that is that people don't actually know how much they can spend to get somebody new into their business, right? When we were talking about that butcher before, or any butcher for that matter, when you actually sit them down and say, okay, if somebody's spending $30 with you every time on average, and they come in twice a week, let's say, the butchers, and I'm not being derogatory because I've worked with quite a few of them, and other business owners just see it as that single transaction. But the reality is, if that person is coming in twice a week for the whole year, And let's say on average they stay with you 2 years, that allows for the renting and the person is there for generations, $120 that every new client is bringing in. And 50% of that is gross profit with the butcher, by the way. So just looking at those areas of their business, then they realize, okay, I'm not engaging the client. So, you know, we need to figure out how we can educate the person. So if you go to a website, like we look at somebody's website and we say, what's the role of your website? And then people say, well, it's for me to sell stuff. Okay, well, it's what we call brochureware. It doesn't work like that anymore. The idea is, and this is why you see downloads, because we want to capture my email address. Okay, so if on the website there was no way to capture my email address, and that was giving me something of value, solve a problem, you know, download just a short cheat sheet or something like that. So we're capturing those leads. So this is how we can say, this is how we can measure the $10,000, because we know that we're capturing leads and we're educating them. Whereas like when we start, there is nothing like that. Then we can say, well, we're going to pick up another 5 clients a month, it might be. That extrapolates very quickly out to that $10,000. And that's just the start of it all. You know, just looking at those is just the start of, you know, of what we can do in any business. And as I said, that's not actually going to cost you extra money to run a big advertising campaign, you know. And there are so many different areas, you know, raising your prices, just that little bit can make a massive difference to your business. I mean, literally, you can, most people, and when you ask them, it's really funny to say, oh, you know, how's your pricing? Oh, look, we're the most expensive. But then when we go out to the marketplace and look at their competitors, probably about 75% of the time, they're actually cheaper than their competitors are. They've been sitting there believing that we're the most expensive in the market, when in fact they're not. Right? So they could raise their prices 10%, boom, straight like that. And now they're not being outpriced. They're the same price as their competitors. And all of a sudden, they've already found more money on the bottom line. So what it is examining things. There's a process that I go through, and I just highlighted one point there. There's a process that I go through with the business owner. We go through the whole thing, and we just add up all these little things. And as I said, you know, I've only had one person so far that we weren't able to find that money. And the reason we couldn't find that money is they were a service provider. And the reality was that they were the business. So they could only work so hard. So even if we got them more leads or whatever, they physically couldn't fulfill it. So in general, it's actually sitting in front of most people. And that's the process that I'm going, and that's the book that I'm writing, where I'm just doing a whole lot of case studies and saying, okay, well, we looked at this business and we looked at this, and this is what it netted out to.
Nice, I like that. And the thing is with pricing, people won't argue about price if they see the value in what you do. And if you deliver so much more value than they're actually paying for, then price isn't an issue. And also I think building your profile and the credibility of the business, you know, whether it's through publicity or by doing a great job, great testimonials, whatever it is, if you can boost your profile, that will allow you to charge more for what you do. And people will be happy to pay for it because you've got that expert status in the industry as the front person of the business or as the way the business works. So I think that's a really important point. And relationship building is a very big point nowadays too. I think, you know, this is the new trust-based economy that we're working in now. And I think as so many people have, you know, have come across shonks in different industries or being ripped off, you know, there's been buyer's remorse over some things. I think people are a bit more cautious now when it comes to spending their money. And so building that trust with people over time, building that relationship, as you say, engaging them first before you, or dating them first before you jump into marriage is really, really important. What are some simple things that people can do to build relationships with prospective, you know, leads to actually have them as clients down the track?
Well, look, one of the things really is to make, and you see it all the time, there is no call to action. There is no offer that you're making the person. And it's not always, you know, a free session or anything like that, or a free product. It's basically people want to as you say, is to build that relationship. They want to try it out a little bit. It's like that first date, you know. Do I, you know, am I interested in doing that? But here's the thing, and you actually touched on it before, is you always want to have a situation where people are comparing. See, you want to be an apple to somebody else's orange, okay? So in other words, as you said, if I add various bits of value around what my offering is, then you can't really compare me to the other guy or the other girl, the other business. So therefore, you have to differentiate yourself by adding value on top of what it is that you're doing. Because once you do that, if you're the same as everybody else, then the only thing me as the consumer can compare you on is price. For example, you know, when you've got those added value services, as we call them, you know, that, you know, you're going to do a free health check on something to look through their business and figure out, well, what is it that we can do to business? Or it may be, you know, when you, like, for example, here's a great example, but see, after a while, everybody does it. When you buy a new car now, the first 2 years or 3 years worth of service is already included in the price of the car. To the Ultra-Tune or the Repco, because it's already paid for, right? So they're adding value to that. But the problem is everybody catches up and everybody's doing it. So you've got to work out what the next thing is. So differentiate yourself by adding some additional value to what it is that you do. And it may be that you have a low cost product or offering to your service. Then I can't compare you with somebody else. So that's the best way to start building, to differentiate yourself in terms of what the value is that you provide. And then price isn't the issue. And there are some great strategies that I've used and have used on me over the years. I mean, one of the great things is what we call halo pricing. And what halo pricing is, and it can work, and I have done it in the butcher and I have seen it in retail, but it's basically taking something in your range. And I'll use my example. It was a while ago now. I think I was 20 at the time, and I went into a shoe shop in the city. And I just started my career in IT, and basically I wanted to buy a pair of dress shoes. Okay, so in those days, $200 pair of shoes, which was for them was pretty, you know, it was right up there. Okay, I went into the shoe shop in the city, very well-known shoe brand, and there on a stand with that, everything was a $1,200 pair of dress shoes, right? And it was like, they're amazing, right? You know, they were amazing. But that was in there with my $200 budget. Okay, and there's this $1,200 pair of shoes.
Yeah.
The thing was, all around it or nearby, there were other shoes. Weren't as high price, obviously, as that $1,200 pair of shoes. And I ended up buying a $300 pair of shoes. On emotion and then justified on facts. Okay, so what I was justifying in my head was, you know what, this $300 pair of shoes is as good as those $1,200 shoes. I actually spent $100 more than I planned to spend. And as I said, we did it in the butcher where we put it was the steak of the year, this beef that it won. So we put that on at a stupid price that we knew nobody would buy, and we raised the price of everything else in the shop by 10%. And people were happy because this piece of premium was good value as opposed to that $80 a kilo steak, right? And there's simple strategies like that that people can use, and they work. They work because it's a value proposition, and that's the thing. That's the thing with that.
Yeah, awesome. And what are some other things that people can do to grow their business and to increase their relationship connection with their clients once they actually have the client on board? What's some things they can do to, I guess, to work?
here's the big thing, and this is part of the process that I go through with people, is the big thing is that you have to sit there and figure out before you and after you. And because people think, okay, well, this is just my customer, but I give you an example that I've actually deployed for a client, is they're a gym, personal trainers and all that sort of thing. So, gym, and he was specialising in the ladies market up there in Brisbane. So we actually went and approached the Lorna Jane store, and we said to them, if we'll give your clients a free personal training session to the value of X number of dollars, right? It was, if you spend, I can't remember what the number was, but if you spend $200 or more, personal training session, okay, with this gym. So it helped them view of the transaction of what their customers are spending, so that the people could get the free personal training session. And more people were coming in through the store because you knew that the women were shopping at Lorna Jane to get their workout gear. Okay, so that was a situation of figure out who else has your customer, rather than before you, then they're going to need your product or service, or after you, you know. And once you figure out those things and work out those relationships, and they're not hard. And there's one of the things that we sit down and we work out really quickly. They're not hard. You can find them in every industry, right? And once you do those things, then boom, all of a sudden you've got another business out there that's referring customers to you. We did it ourselves many years ago. We had someone we knew when I had a multi-award winning cafe, and there was someone we knew who had a hairdresser. She was in a situation where she didn't have a lot of foot traffic, whatever, and I just went to her and I said, what can you afford to give away for free to your salon? A free, okay? So what we did was we made up vouchers for her as well, and the cafe was the C-Spot Cafe all those years ago, and we said, you know, if you come in this night, and we gave our guest vouchers to say, please be the guest of us. Right? It was a Valentine's Day extra value thing that we did for everyone who came in on Valentine's night for dinner, right? So we gave the ladies this voucher, and they thought it was great. What she did was, when people have their hair done, what do they want to do? They want to look good. So we gave her vouchers to give out on our behalf at our cafe, and buy one coffee and get one free. This was a long time ago, okay? So she actually ended up with 6 new clients out of the freebies that went there. So there's so many cross promotions that you can do. 9 times out of 10, it's just a matter of asking. Just a matter of going and seeing the business, saying, hey, you know, what we can do to help you get more business, and vice versa. And you can grow your business very, very quickly like that. But people just don't think to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Creating win-win scenarios, and really looking at how you can really work together with other businesses in similar industries to have your client first, and see how you can joint venture and create a stronger partnership working together. So that's really fantastic. And now, can you tell us a bit more about business performance tuning, about what you do with clients and how you work with clients one-on-one? How can people work with you?
Well, I work with clients one-on-one in a number. First of all, generally what we do is we go through a process and we have a chat. It's a bit like the dating, right? And we have a chat so that I can get, you know, obviously I don't charge for that. We have a chat to see and every business owner needs to know this, right? The biggest struggle is they don't actually know where they're going. They don't actually know what they're doing. And as I say in some of the talks that I give, who gets into their car in the morning and just drives off aimlessly? When you get in your car, you're going to get the milk, you're going to pick up the kids, you're going to drop the kids. But these people spend their lives and a whole lot of money on their business that endpoint is. Where is it that they're going? They're just basically driving aimlessly along. So that's one of the things that I do with clients, to work out where it is that we're going. You know, I would like to sell my business in 5 years. You know, I would like to be making $100,000 for myself every year, or whatever it happens to be. So I work through that process with the client. But one of the most important things, and I won't say it offends people, but people get aghast, is I then find out if they're really committed to doing that, right? Say that this is what they want, whatever. But when it comes to, like, the answers for most things in business, they're not easy, okay? There's usually a simple answer to most business problems, but it's not easy because you have to implement something or you have to change something. And if the person is not committed to that change, actually, I can't work with them to get the result that they're wanting. So there's an interview. So when people want to work with me, there's an interview process that I go through. We have a chat, work out what it is that they want to do, over what time frame, and then we go from there. We see if we're a good fit, because sometimes to go about things, right? And vice versa. So, you know, that's, and then we look at it. I also have started a small group coaching. When I say group coaching, I limit them to 5. We only have 5 people in the group. So it really is, so it makes it more accessible from a financial perspective for people. But having a group of 5 working together is fantastic, because everybody starts helping each other and bouncing off each other, and that works really effectively. You know, when I do one-on-one stuff, different coach is probably not the right word. I mean, I do that as part of the process, but I roll up my sleeves, and in a lot of cases, I will actually help people implement the result. So it is more of a consultative, operational thing. Because there's plenty of people out there who will sit there and tell you what it is that you need to do and say, yep, I gave them great advice, but I know the problem is implementation. So unless I actually help drag you, try and punch you up a bit, it doesn't get done. So with the small number of clients that I work with one-on-one, and I do keep that small so I can give them the best value, I'm very much hands-on. And on the other side, to make that style of thing more accessible, I'm running very intimate, for want of a better term, group coaching and implementation, and accountable, right? Everyone's accountable to each other. So they're basically the options I have. And I actually have an online learning program for people who are not ready. It's not expensive. People who are not ready for any sort of coaching like that, but need to get some information. So I do have an online course that people can look at. So after that first conversation, we work out what's best for the person.
Yeah, fantastic. And you know, the thing with business owners too, particularly if they're doing just about everything in their business, is they can get very lonely at times. And so it's really nice to have a mastermind group like that, where they can actually, you know, connect with other business owners and see that, you know, a lot of business owners have similar challenges, you know, and some of the biggest challenges that I've heard in my time in business is, well, first thing is letting go and actually stepping away from your business or tasks in your business. Obviously, most times the people that start the business are not the best people to run the business. And so to actually step back and have someone else manage your business and outsource the tasks that you know, perhaps you're by doing, other people could do it, and you can focus on just what you really love doing. That's one thing. The other thing is actually finding the right staff, finding the right team members is a challenge for business people so effectively. And you know, something that I've done quite a few times, and I've had some great people and some not so great people. So it can be quite a process to actually find the right team members. And then, you know, thirdly, really scaling the business. So you really have to let go, outsource, and build the team to make the dream work. As they say, the team makes the dream work. So do you have any tips on actually members? It helps.
I'm getting new team members. Okay. The most important thing is actually figuring out before you go out to the marketplace, and I'll give you a couple of tips here, is exactly what it is that you're trying to achieve with that team member. Okay. And whether that should be an outsourced virtual assistant or whether it should be a physical person in your business. Okay. So you as the business owner have to figure that out. first. Okay. If you're not doing that, then you're going to end up with the wrong person. That's the first thing. The second thing is you have to be ready to take on that person. So when I talk about systemizing your business, I'm talking about, okay, if I know what it is that I need to do, or the way we do things here, as I like to say, this and this, and it's not necessarily micromanaging, then you've got a way of knowing how that person is going, right? So the first thing is knowing exactly what it is that you want that person to do, and not just having somebody arrive in your premises and say, hey, you do that over there, all right? So you have to have a plan. You have to be prepared. Because these days, even though people talk about unemployment, if you're not that person and you're not leading that culture, you're not going to get the best stuff, right? So that's the first thing, knowing what it is exactly that you want to do. And then the other thing is, the reality of the situation is, and it always has been really when you look at it, is you can teach people the majority of the technical skills that they need. Okay, you really need to hire on, it's not so much personality and attitude, because you can't always get that at the interview, right? Is you really want to be hiring somebody who has the right attitude and the right personality that's a fit for your culture. To give you an example, in one of our business, one of our things was when anyone came into the cafe, we had to have them greeted within 30 seconds. Okay, I never had to, it was only a small one, by the way, I never had to enforce that rule. The simple reason is the people that we hired were naturally happy people. They love people, right? So there's an example of getting the right person and the right fit for the, for the role, as opposed to, and then we could teach them all the technical skills that that were required after that. So you can teach the obviously, if it's a brain surgeon's job, you need to get someone who's qualified as a brain surgeon, right? But for the most part, in most businesses, it's that low-value stuff that you want to push out of your way to free up your time. And when you do that, then attitude first, right? And then you can teach them skills. Here's a tip for everybody that not a lot of people use, is that if you're hiring someone for a customer centric role where you've got to talk to clients, or you've got to talk on the phone, get them to sorry, I'm just about to sneeze, pardon me. Get them to do, and everyone's got one of these, everyone's got a mobile phone, get them to do a video of them talking and send that in as part of their application process, right? Okay. And I do that with my clients all the time. We actually say on their, when they're running a job ad, if you're this person, blah, blah, please send in a 2-minute video of yourself explaining why it is that you would love to work with us, or what makes you great. Okay, because everyone's got a phone, everyone can do a selfie, and the reality is if they can't speak well and even do that, then they're not going to be the right fit anyway. And I had one client who said, oh yeah, but if I do that, I'm not going to get a lot of people. The reality was, he originally, when he ran an ad, would get about 40 people applying for the ad, and it was a sales position, by the way, about 40 people for the ad. When we did it this way, he got 5, because only 5 people were bothered to make a 2-minute selfie and send it in, part of their application. And out of those 5 people, 3 of them, he could have hired 3 of them. Right. So it's a great tip. Get them to do an application, because it saves you time. You can just go through all the selfies and say, hey, that works and that person doesn't. And so there's a great little tip when you're hiring people, because then you see what sort of personality they have. And then the other great tip when you're hiring somebody, like people like to check references and all that sort of thing. If they're in a position where they've managed people before, talk to the people they managed. Boss. Okay, because then you'll get a really good idea of the style of person that you're employing. So there's a couple of when you get into
really,
but the selfie one looks great.
tip. We have to wrap up very shortly, but just quickly on that, do you do any personality profiling or any tests that you recommend as well on top of that?
On employees?
Yes,
I don't generally
when you employ people.
recommend it in bigger businesses, yes. Right, but for the small business, I think at the end of the day, when I say small business, it could be 30 people or so. For the small business, say that you develop your own personality profile depending on the culture of your business. And the reality is, if you're doing what you said before and you're building your profile, people get to know your business, you will attract the right people anyway. Okay? But there are a lot of, I mean, like, the reality of it is, like, you know, anybody can answer the right questions in a test and make it look like, hey, that's what I'm asking for, you know? Like, for example, in an interview, you'll say, hey, we need someone who can type 40 words a minute. Hey, yeah, that's me. Right? You know, you're always going to answer the right thing. Okay? So we don't do that, right? And so I say, you know, you really got to, and sometimes it takes longer to get the right person, but I generally don't recommend that profiling, because, if, as I said, you know, what you can get from someone doing a selfie, for a start, giving that selfie, going back to that selfie ID, if they're not bothered to pick up their phone, which everyone's holding on to most of the day, and do a 2-minute selfie as to why they should get that job, then they're not going to be bothered to work hard, right? They're not going to be bothered to deliver, because they can't be even bothered to sell themselves. So how's that going to work, right? So there's lots of little things that you can do with that.
Yeah, great. I know that there's some people that do believe in the personality profiling, and just some, for those that are watching, if anyone's interested in that or looking further into it, there's things like the DISC profiling, the Myers-Briggs profiling, wealth dynamics, something called PCM, process communication method, which is also used by groups like NASA, etc. So I know that you know, some people use it and they find it great. And I guess, you know, each to their own in that area. But, you know, attitude is definitely really important, and that's something that probably doesn't come out in the test, is their actual attitude.
No.
So that's very important. Now, I know you know soon, Azim. Sorry, what were you going to add to that?
Let me just finish off on that point, though, because what you say is very valid. But what you also said was, you know, people like NASA. Okay, so the majority of business owners aren't NASA. Right? No. If it's a situation where they have to be able to respond to stress effectively, very well, you know, and they come under a lot of stress or whatever it is, like an air traffic controller, as an example, then those profile tests are invaluable, right? But for the guy who has the mum and pop shop down the road, okay, for a start, they probably haven't done one themselves, okay? Or even a small business where it's not that critical, it's the fit into the existing team and all that sort of thing. And another great tip when you're hiring somebody is, at that final interview, is actually takes the person or a person who is going to work with that person, not their manager, like team member, you know, same level, take them and get their feedback on the person. Because there's nothing worse than being in a job and saying, hey, Aldwyn, here's Azim, he's the new employee, you know, show him the ropes. And you think, oh, why did we hire him? So give the team member or team members an opportunity to give you feedback on that person at the final interview stage. You'll find that makes a huge difference, because they're the person that's going to work with them day in and day out. Right?
Yes, very good tip. Now, I know you need to run off, Azim. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. So how can people connect with you if they want to get in touch?
If they want to connect with me, they can you see that okay?
Yes.
They can email me at that
address. To you. Okay, can you also say that out, please?
Okay, of course I can. They can email me at Azim, A-Z-I-M, at Business Performance Tuning, or one word, .com.au. And I'd love to hear from anybody, and if anybody would like to send me an email contact, I'm happy to do the $10,000 in 45 minutes with them. There's no commitment, you know, it's not a sale or whatever, and I'm happy to do that. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Azim. And for those watching, thank you so much for joining us. And we have been chatting today to Azim Sahu-Khan about how to find $10,000 in your business in 45 minutes or less. And Azim is based in Sydney. He's the Director of Business Performance Tuning. So make sure you connect with him if you want to find out how to find $10,000 in your business in 45 minutes or less. And of course, people can connect with Azim also online and on his email he just mentioned there. And You can connect with me at aaxpose.com. Also, Google my name. You'll find me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google+, Pinterest, and of course, YouTube channel if you haven't already, Aldwyn Altuney on YouTube. And if you've got any comments, questions from this show, we'd love to hear from you. So please pop it underneath this video wherever you're watching it. And we'd love to hear from you on what you thought of the show. This is our very first Business Xpose TV episode. I'm very excited to be launching this with Azim. He's an awesome guy and can definitely help transform your business. So make sure you connect with him. Thanks once again. Hope you're in the world, and we'll be back to you soon with more episodes. Bye for now.